Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Claudine.
We're here today to talk about a case, Dewees. It was a taxpayer that beat the FBAR penalty, but got hit heavily by the Form 5471 penalty, $120,000.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting case. The IRS has for a while been saying it wanted to assess 5471 penalties. And for those uninitiated, the Form 5471 is, we've done a few videos on it. It's a completely onerous form that is usually not really even something the IRS can possibly use. It's required in many situations where people own an interest in a foreign corporation, and it stems from a law in 1960, 1962, two laws that require this. The form was meant to put a requirement onto large foreign multinational corporations. Unfortunately, it hits a lot of smaller U.S. persons, as Mr. Dewees, who was a consultant in Canada, and he happened to do it under a Canadian corporation. Now, if he did it just as Mr. Dewees' consulting company, there would be no 5471 requirement. There would be no penalty.
Oh.
And there was no additional tax due or anything because of the 5471. It's something that we refer to as a DIRF, delinquent informational return form. And a lot of these DIRFs exist for corporations, for partnerships, for trusts, for gifts, for foreign pensions, and it's one of those tricks that the IRS puts in there where they require a whole bunch of reporting for information that goes to the Ark, next to the Ark of the Covenant, as in Indiana Jones, where it sits there and is neglected and not one thing is done with it.
It seems like another one of those cases where they're not catching terrorists, they're catching average Joes, which they caught in this place.
Right, and I would say somebody who's working as a consultant seems to be more of an average Joe than the big fish, and somebody who I would classify more as the minnow, as the whale. And I know my friends at the Isaac Brock Society may disagree with my characterization, but this is somebody who's not the largest fish in the world. This is exactly the kind of person who I said, you got to be a little bit careful about doing this. But conversely, some people may say, well, Mr. Dewees shouldn't even have made the offshore disclosure in the first place. And the reason why, the IRS only knew that he was missing the forms because he entered into the program in 2009.
Oh.
So that's what's really obnoxious about this.
So potentially he could have flew under the radar.
He probably would have. Or if he waited in 2014 and made a streamlined disclosure, he would have been fine.
No kidding.
Yeah, he could have just said, oh, I made a mistake and I'm going to file some Form 5471s. And because I'm living in Canada, I qualify for the foreign program that has no offshore penalty, so here's some missing returns and be done with it.
Now, here's my question. He was living in Canada, so how does the IRS collect on you if you're in another country?
Yeah, so there's a little-known thing. It's called the Mutual Collection Assistance Request. So the IRS has these deals with other countries in the world where they will collect taxes. If you have a Canadian tax debt and you happen to be in America, America could help Canadians. They'll collect it for you, and vice versa. So there's 5 countries right now, Canada, Denmark, France, the Netherlands, Sweden. And we have talked to some of our friends like Keith Redmond to say that these countries won't be enforcing these. Well, geez. Seems like they did here, because here in Canada, now this might be the reason why, is because Mr. Dewees had a refund coming in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the collection wasn't really much like going out to his house and knocking on his door, hey, where's your stuff, buddy?
There was no Canadian, what do they call them?
The Mounties, right. There was no one there. It was just more like, hey, you have some money here, can you send it to us? Sure. So maybe that's the limited MCAR. Maybe Canada would go a little bit further.
Yep.
Either way, Mr. Dewees, who thought that he, I'm not sure exactly what happened in this case, and the facts are a little unclear because it says he entered the offshore program in 2009 and then was assessed a penalty of over $185,000, and he said, go pound sand. And he withdrew, but I'm not sure if he was actually in the 2009 program or later on they pushed him into 2011.
Yep.
But he withdrew in 2011, so it's a little unsure, but something might have happened where he told them, go pound sand, I'm not going to pay this penalty, which raised the ire of an IRS employee who felt, you're not respecting us, and now took it upon themselves in this case. And again, here is somebody who came to you say, all right, yeah, we can't collect your FBAR penalties. Guess what, buddy? We're going to get you on this.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the penalty for not filing Form 5471 is $10,000 a year.
Yep.
Correct?
That's right. And it keeps your entire return open.
That's why they could go back.
They could go back further. We're actually not sure because sometimes there's the Hire Act of 2010 changed what the assessments could be. I'm not sure exactly if they did something right here. Something seems, there's facts in here that seem a little off to us. Maybe they're just reported incorrectly. The court just sort of got them down wrong. It just doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
Some things did change in the Hire Act. Right now, if you don't file that Form 5471, it is indefinite statute. So that's the problem here, is that they can go back way back in time. And I mean, it's just really, really obnoxious. And I mean, here it is. The IRS certainly looked at Mr. Dewees not as a person. They looked at him as a target. Hey, man, we don't like the fact that you're defending yourself. We're going to get you.
I'm literally just reading what you wrote, and I love it. Expecting justice from federal court is like expecting justice from corn, expecting justice from chickens.
Yeah. So he did bring right. And that's something I lifted from Larry. Oh boy, Larry, he wrote a book on, he was charged with tax, a great trader, a big trader. He was charged with tax evasion. And that was a line I lifted from there. And that's basically it. You know, the federal courts are always going to take the government side nearly all the time, unless there's some reason that the judge doesn't like the government.
Right.
But look, the government is who gives them their pension, all their benefits. So the government is government employees, just like them. They're good people. Why would they ever do anything that isn't, on the up and up? It's like, well, people are people. People get offended and they get vested in believing that they're on the side of truth and justice. So then this is a situation where I don't think there was a tax due. Yet $120,000 penalty
That's insane.
Is appropriate? You
No.
think? Yeah. So, I mean, somewhere along the line, we really lost track here. Where I would like to see there to be a little better review, and I think that there might have been some mistakes along the way, or maybe not. It's very difficult. There's holes missing here. But I would say, one of the things you want to do is, if you are removing yourself from the OVDP, is understand the consequences. And if you are opting out, to understand, like, okay, you might win on the FBAR, but are there other things hanging out?
Yes.
And this is the other thing that we have seen because in 2011, because this looks like these penalties were assessed in 2011, nobody was assessing 5471s in 2011. It wasn't done. Even 2012, 2013, 14, we would talk to the examiners like, oh, okay, are you gonna, hey, just sort of, we were opting out. And, maybe it was a situation where we had one or two missing and we're sort of waiting for them to do it. And then they didn't assess the 5471 penalties.
Yep.
And after the fact, we're like, okay, hey, look, we signed a thing and, we have our agreement, so they can't come back. We're just under, curiosity. You didn't hit us with these penalties that you could have.
Well, you know what I just looked up really quickly was IRS IPU 5471. There is an international practice unit for Form 5471 that walks now, within the past year these were created, walks the IRS employees step by step on what to look for to see if you can assess someone for 5471. And even if they can't, there's other things they tell the employees to look for that they could assess penalties on.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's part of the reason why.
Well, I think this was actually assessed before that IPU.
Oh.
Yeah. If you look at the history, right, I think we did that. We talked about that last year.
Yeah.
And that's pretty big news because that was something that changed, because in 2014 they weren't, and they just said, no, we're just not assessing 5471 penalties. And that was sort of, our experience kind of nationwide. So somebody went out of their way, to say, okay. So it's like, it seems like somebody took this personally. A revenue agent took this personally and thought they were insulted. And they're going to say, well, I'll show you. Wow. And that is, that's a situation we've seen. We saw that in the McBride FBAR case. John McBride didn't do anything wrong, but he rubbed somebody the wrong way. And they're saying, well, I'll show you. How about a $2 million FBAR penalty for an account you never controlled? And so that's really one of the things why, when you do this, you got to be careful and you got to manage the emotions of a revenue agent.
One quick question. 5471 for dormant corporations, is it still a $10,000 penalty?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's a dormant corporation, yet you still have to file And if not, you get a $10,000
Yeah.
penalty, even though it's a dormant corporation.
Yes.
That's effed up.
It's a dormant. There's a 5471 obligation. Dormant, and it's pretty simple to file the form. But if
Yeah.
you don't do it, it's a huge penalty. And you try to say, well, how is the IRS damaged by not getting information that it doesn't need?
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with it. And when he brings in the suit, it's, the court really didn't look into that. This is where the federal court just sort of, they rubber stamp it. He brought some claims. They're like, no, they're just going to enforce it because that's what they do.
Yep.
And it's like, but how is this related? How, like, if this was a contract claim, let's just say that we're not dealing with the federal government, but that there was a contract claim. In order for the IRS to prevail, they would have to show some sort of damages. How are you possibly damaged by not getting this form that you eventually got?
Right.
What did you need? Where is your? And they can't show that. Yet, in practice, the federal courts just sort of gloss over, like, wait, you're missing something very critical here: an actual injury. There's no actual injury. Yet you think $120,000 penalty on an individual is appropriate. You think this is a good idea, and it's like they all need to be pulled out of whatever conditioning they are and meet real people in the real world and say, wow, these are actually real people who actually had better ideas of that $120,000 than we were. And it's like, what are you collecting this for anyway? The IRS collects more money than ever before, yet the deficit is out of control. So it's just like, it's not like you really need it. It's for the war effort. What's it for?
Right.
Just so you just need it because an employee's ego is hurt. That's
Pretty
what's
much it.
needed. Yeah, and I think that's the case.
And you have to be careful as well. So to wrap up, there's other delinquent reporting forms.
Yep.
8865,
Foreign partnerships. Yep.
Okay. 5472.
Yeah, and those are for foreign-owned U.S. companies in the U.S. A lot of people are missing that, and that, especially in real estate, they're missing that.
3520.
Right, that's your 3520 is where you're going to have a trust overseas, foundation trust. Also, for some foreign pensions, depending on your treaty you're in, depending on what it is, you may be required under those.
So you think you're just saving for retirement, yet you have to report it to the United States, even though all the money is...
And now you better handle this quickly, and you better not anger anyone, because otherwise you'll get their wrath, and they'll go back in time to say, okay, well, yeah, sure, you have this. We weren't damaged in any sort of way. There's no tax due, but screw you. Here's $120,000 worth of penalty.
What
and
about,
if you happen to be in one of these countries, we can collect it from you.
3520A?
And that could be, for most foreign pensions, that's going to be required. But the 3520 could also be required. And also for foreign gifts. And that penalty for not filing isn't $10,000. It could be a percentage of what the thing is. Oh my God. So that actually could be a penalty worse than the FBAR, depending on the situation.
Form 8938.
That's our FATCA form. So that's, if you don't file that, that's another $10,000 one.
And Form 920.
This is the one that goes sort of hand in hand with the 5471. And if you look at that IRS IPU, the International Practice Unit Guide on audits, you look to the 5471. Okay, you can't assess a 5471 penalty, but if you see a large influx of capital from somewhere in this corporation at any point, they probably didn't file the Form 920. And now you have them on that.
Well, that just leads me to my very last question is, could you potentially have issues where you, say, didn't file two of these forms or three of these forms every year, $10,000 per form per year?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and the issue that we see is when people do it, many people do an offshore disclosure, they're missing forms. So these people are trying to do the right thing. And even in their disclosure, they didn't do the right thing.
And it's more likely to get caught because
now you told the IRS about it.
Wow.
So it's something where, just check to see everything's there that needs to be there. It's such a trap. It's a ridiculous trap that has nothing to do with helping the IRS get information that could lead to tax compliance. It's merely a trap to get the people who didn't file these technical forms that have nothing to do with anything. And the other two areas where we see a lot of 5471 issues, holding companies for asset protection. If you're in many countries as a U.S. person, you're a target for litigation. Your attorney there is going to say, look, you got to put your house, you got to put your car, you got to put your jet ski in a foreign corporation. Every foreign corporation that it will be required to file one. Otherwise, you could have somebody in Costa Rica could have 6, 7 different corporations, and that's $60,000 per year. So even if you beat the FBAR penalty, you don't even have the FBAR penalty. The IRS has this. Now, if you're in Costa Rica, there is no mutual collection, so the IRS would have to find another way to go after you. But if you were in, if you're in Sweden, the Netherlands, France, the IRS, Denmark, Canada, and soon to be Japan, once that's ratified, you got a little bit of an issue. And I don't know how strong I feel about trusting those countries not to do what the IRS says they're going to do, especially you have a refund coming. It's super easy.
Yep.
Hey, please just send us this money. Oh, yeah, here you go, IRS.
And yet the IRS has yet to answer our open question that we have posed to them many times. Can you please tell us the name of the terrorist that you've caught with any of these forms so far?
Who's the terrorist you caught with the FBAR? Where is the tax compliance how are you encouraging tax compliance when you are acting like madmen? Either, you're holding a gun to someone's head to get them into a car where someone's driving drunk. It seems like that's really the what people are given. So these are dicey situations. People do want to take care of it and mitigate the risks. So we do the best we can with what we have. We have to get ahead of things and see what things are actually missing. And so coming up with a solid penalty mitigation guideline and making sure that we eliminate one threat, we don't create a new one, is really critical to a really good offshore disclosure. And these DERFs are a nightmare, and they make no sense. There's no logic process you could use to possibly figure it out. And the compliance work required on it is just so incredibly insane. It makes no sense. And that's why it's a law, probably because it makes no sense. It does create a lot of work for the IRS, a lot of job security there, a lot of penalties. So that's why these are probably going to be around for a very long time.
DERF sounds like a bad gang. I would leather jag with DERF on the back. All right. Well, if you are unsure if you need to report anything offshore, if you need any assistance getting into an offshore program, don't hesitate to contact us. We can definitely advise people on if they need to and which program's the best. And if you contact us, any information you tell us will be kept confidential.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. You can call us at 888-727-8796 or info@irsmedic.com. You can like and comment below and make sure you subscribe to our channel so you get more awesome tax updates. Thank you so much for watching.